So basically you designed a layer to help people who build on Ethereum make things run really fast and cost
Mm,
effective. I was like,
mm-hmm.
okay, well, why don't we bring that to other people? There's a lot of people like us that are trying to start applications that are running
Right.
into these problems. And this was in 2017. And then we formally got started, I guess, January 1st, 2018. And some people say the best ideas for businesses are when you're solving a problem for yourself.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Girl Gone Crypto. Today I am so excited to have Skale here on the show. We've got Jack O'Halloran, the co-founder and CEO of Skale Labs. So, Jack, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. My pleasure to be here.
So I know we were just chatting about this before you hopped on. You got this beautiful, background behind you with the real plants. I've got the not so real plants here. Don't judge me, everyone. but um, obviously, we have a lot to dive into today. I mean, everything that you guys are building at Scale, everything that's happening with the upcoming Ethereum merge, and like, there's just so much to dive into. I'm really excited to have you on the show. So just to kick things off, give us a high level overview of what Scale is, and then we will just jump into it from there.
All right, great. So first off, Scale is an open, decentralized blockchain. Okay, so I think, you think of Ethereum, you think of Bitcoin, these are open, decentralized networks. So Scale, what makes Scale unique is that it's purpose built for user experience and speed. Okay, so our goal is to not have hundreds of thousands of users using the network a day, but hundreds of millions. And the way Scale does that is instead of having one blockchain, there's many, many blockchains that all work together and they actually secure each other. And so that's really what Scale is. Scale's here to really take us to the next level in terms of Web3, where we have hundreds of millions of users. And right now, we still just have like millions of users a day that interact with blockchains. So that's the very abbreviated summary. Excited to go deeper.
Yeah, there's so much to jump into. Obviously, one of the big things that us Ethereum users love to complain about, and for good reason, is gas fees. And so, you guys are an Ethereum native blockchain network with zero gas fees. Can you kind of walk us through how that works and how you guys are able to accomplish that?
Yeah, and I think when you think of user experience optimization for blockchain, the easiest place to tackle are gas fees. Okay. There's obviously speed and latency and
Right.
transaction times and front running and minor extractive value. But hey, the one we're most familiar with is you go to process a transaction and on the mainnet, it might be $5 or $10 or 50 or $100, depending on the gas fees.
Mm-hmm.
Scale's designed to help that go away. Now, that people that run servers or companies or entities that run servers, these are called validators in the proof of stake world, similar to like what a miner would be on Bitcoin or Ethereum. But a validator still has to get paid, and people that stake have to get paid. And so Scale manages that by actually letting applications subsidize the fee for the users. And so let's say I'm a DApp and I have a decentralized exchange or a game or a metaverse product. Well, I actually pay in advance for the fee for the chain space, the compute space,
Mm.
and it makes so my end users don't have to pay. And also, if you pay in advance for anything, especially computing, it's way less expensive. And so, so it's an optimized cost model designed to help improve user experience.
Interesting. I think that's so smart because so many applications I feel like would be more than willing to pay for that if that means that they are able to have a more consistent user experience. But how do you prepay with how much gas fees fluctuate? Is it that, like, do you guys absorb? Does it kind of balance out because sometimes people overpaid slightly or underpaid? Like, how does that work?
So it works a lot like like traditional computing or traditional applications. So let's say Uber, you're taking Uber. Well, you don't have to pay Amazon fees. If let's say Uber is using Amazon to run servers on the back end, the end user doesn't pay, but Amazon still has to get paid. Now, if Uber or any application wants to lock in less expensive gas fees, what they do is they pay in advance and then they lock in a certain amount of compute space. Now,
Mm.
let's say it's a light day, no one's driving the Uber, riding Ubers. Well, you're not using as much space where you're wasting money you prepaid for. But let's say it's a real heavy day, well, and you haven't, you might hit your peak. Now, the reality is with elastic computing, they can keep making it go up and down and optimize it. Blockchains are a little less elastic,
Mhm.
but the same premise holds true that if you pay in advance for the space, then it will cost less. So there's no per fee transactions. The validators are actually paid on a monthly basis to run the servers. And if you can process with multi-transaction mode on Scale 500 transactions per second. Without multi-transaction mode, it's around, sorry, I got a little cough. It's around 200 transactions per second. But if you're not using those transactions, you're kind of paying in advance for space you're not using. But at the end of the day, it ends up making the fees like 1,000 times less expensive because of this model. Because anytime you want something real time, it's going to cost more.
Right. So I know you'd mentioned, different dapps and applications being built kind of, on top of Scale. Are there certain categories of different, types of dapps that you guys are seeing that are interested in that Scale like works especially well for?
Yeah. So it's like the low hanging fruit. There's all this fruit on the tree, all these different applications. The low hanging fruit for Scale are applications that have lots of transactions and need a really good user experience. So gaming is one of the biggest verticals. Crypto Blades just went live on Scale and immediately bridged over 100,000 NFTs and have, there's already, millions and millions of transactions that have taken place just from that one game. We have also Web3 applications. Mark Cuban and Fallon Fatemi's new company Fireside that has a huge Web2 user base is launching a Web3 NFT gated content access. And Adam W., who has 16 million TikTok followers, is launching a network there, and that's going to be running on Scale. So anyways, these are applications that users don't want to pay $10 or $5 or even 20 cents or 50 cents like on other chains. And they need things to happen fast. So gaming and Web3 are really the centers of excellence. And then DeFi on Scale supports those applications. So let's say I want to swap an asset on Fireside for USDC. I can do that on Ruby Exchange, which is the primary exchange on Scale.
So I want to talk a little bit about the difference between Scale and Scale Labs and decentralization, of the project in general. Excuse my, dad joke, but like what scale are you, where are you guys on the scale of decentralization? Can you kind of walk us through that whole piece of things?
Yeah, so Scale is highly decentralized. There are 160-ish servers in the network run by 48 validator orgs. The core team, we don't run a single server. The code's all open source. The governance, how the code is upgraded is all managed through multi-sig held by many different companies. There'll be on-chain voting launching later this year, but Scale Labs is just a core team. Myself and Stan Kladko are the founders of Scale, but we had an idea that really was centered around decentralization. And so very quickly, a foundation was created and Scale Labs passed all the IP and assets over to this foundation. And Scale's a community-owned good. And it happens to share the same name because we're on the same mission as the core team. But the core team, really, we're just kind of like shepherds and supporters of this network and facilitators. And the network's run and governed by other people, which is very cool.
So I want to dive a little bit more into kind of how this all really works. And so obviously, per your namesake, you talk about like scalability, right? But like, I know you had mentioned like different blockchains coming together. Can you just give us kind of the nuts and bolts? This is really how Scale works on kind of the back end, more like technical side of things.
Yeah. And I'm going to I'll try to be less technical at the start. And just by saying, so you can think of a blockchain as it's almost like a database. It's a database are many computers that work together. Okay. And they're just, like any application you're using has a database on the back end where data is stored and processed. And so let's say you're using Stripe or you're using Venmo and you send someone money. Well, Venmo's running servers that are keeping track of your profile and how much money you have and whom what actions you're taking. And that's a database effectively. Now, blockchains typically have just been one database, and one database means there's just finite amount of capacity. There's only so much power. Like you can think of it as a car, right? There's only so much power you could put in a car engine. But if you had 10 cars or 100 cars or 200 cars, well, you collectively have a lot more power. All right. And that's really what Scale does is it enables you to have lots of cars And the thing is, they all can have their own lane, and so they can drive really fast. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's it. It's and the other thing is they all share security. It's almost like there's a police force that supports all of them collectively, and that's what Scale's mission is to let there be this unlimited capacity with pooled security that makes, at the end of the day, helps people get from point A to point B faster.
So walk me through a little bit of the experience, maybe both the user and the developer side of things, and how people interact with Scale. So let's say on the developer side, like if someone has a dApp they're wanting to build, what does it look like for them to kind of get started and dive into what that would look like to build on Scale? And then also from more of like the user perspective, are people mainly interacting with Scale like through dApps, or kind of walk us through that experience on both ends?
Yeah, so Scale, one of the great things about Scale is it's actually built on Ethereum and integrated with Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of blockchains have run EVM or Ethereum Virtual Machine, which is the
Right.
computational system to help you process smart contracts and transactions, and then they just live separately. Scale is actually integrated with Ethereum, and it runs Ethereum Virtual Machine on each of these databases or blockchains. And
Mm-hmm.
so anybody, if you're building and you build something for Ethereum, well, it works for Scale. Like it takes weeks or days or even hours. Like you could be building on at a hackathon and build something for Ethereum and then port it over to Scale in literally an hour. I know you were at East Seattle recently, and
Mm-hmm.
Scale's been supporting so many ETH hackathons, and it's a huge advantage for us and the Scale community that any Ethereum developer is able to leverage their assets, tooling, and other product integrations with Scale.
Awesome. So I guess like one thing I would like love to hear a little bit more about is I know you'd mentioned kind of like your background a little bit in the space, but what was the motivation to really decide to work on Scale and be part of Scale Labs?
Yeah, so I had been a technology entrepreneur in Silicon Valley for a really long time and started machine learning companies and uh, use AI and advanced analytics. And I been part of a very successful startup that was a mobile security company, and so I came from this traditional tech space, but
Mm-hmm.
I started following Bitcoin very early and getting involved with cryptocurrencies back in 2013. But it was just kind of like my side job, or like, something I did on the nights or weekends. And then I was starting a new company in 2017, and I wanted to start a decentralized application. And there's so many great ideas that are just still untouched for
Mm-hmm.
dApps. That's when I met Stan Kladko. Stan is a world-renowned cryptographer and physicist. Um, uh, you know, top PhD from Max Planck in Physics Institute in Germany, and been done research at Los Alamos National Laboratory and Stanford. And he actually studied cryptography at Stanford too, and
Oh.
has about 20 years of cryptography experience. I met Stan, and Stan had all these ideas. He wanted to start all these different applications. I was like, Stan, what makes you think you could start all these applications? And he's like, well, I've designed this. And when I got into it with him, and I was like, so basically you designed a layer to help people who build on Ethereum make things run really fast and cost
Mm-hmm.
effective.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, well, why don't we bring that to other people? There's a lot of people like us that are trying to start applications that are running
Right.
into these problems. And this was in 2017. And then we formally got started, I guess, January 1st, 2018. And some people say the best ideas for businesses are when you're solving a problem for yourself.
Totally.
And that's really kind of what happened. We didn't have to like just go, we had these problems. And so,
Right.
and Stan, really deserves credit. He's the
Mm.
technical visionary that in his, knew how this worked and was able to map this out.
Mm-hmm. So I wanted to just chat a little bit about the upcoming Ethereum merge. I should almost say upcoming in air quotes, just because it's been upcoming for so long now. But since you guys are actually integrated with Ethereum, like how is that going to impact Scale? What you guys
Mhm.
are doing impact the relevance in the space? Like I just love to hear just your thoughts on all of this coming up.
Yeah, well, Scale's impacted in a lot of ways. One, obviously, all of our application partners who have Ethereum integrations are impacted. Two, Scale itself is an application that runs blockchains, right, on the Ethereum mainnet. So
Mm-hmm.
Ethereum manages the staking for Scale. It manages like blockchain creations and node or chain creations on Scale. It manages slashing. It manages all these functions, and the Scale token lives on the Ethereum mainnet. So
Mhm.
if anyone's staking Scale, if anyone is running a validator node, all of these, if you are renting a chain, they're all orchestrated by Ethereum. So we're impacted, and we're having to make sure our test nets are being upgraded and updated so we can test effectively against what's coming. We also have to keep testing against what is there because it's not there yet. And so it's added some challenges. But at the end of the day, Ethereum, the merge will not make Ethereum hyper fast. It's going to make
Right.
Ethereum a lot more energy friendly and eco friendly, which is great. And we're fully in supportive of, but it's still, scaling solutions are still needed direly,
Mhm.
and we'll be there. So we're just, we're sitting here, our fingers are crossed. We're hoping it all goes smoothly. And one thing that I'm, very certain of is I think that they won't launch without being really incredibly, they'll take
Yes.
another delay
Mhm.
over launching something that's not, definitively going to work.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that everyone kind of respects that, even though we all like to, give a little, crap and like joke a little bit about how it's never going to happen. It is because every time there's a delay, it's because they're really making sure it's ready. And to your point, I'm glad that you touched on, the speed and like even gas fees. Like I think a lot of people have these misconceptions that it's suddenly going to be like no gas fees and really fast, and that's not necessarily the case. So, so I think one thing that would just be kind of like fun to dive into a little bit more, because you just mentioned it, is the Scale token. And so can you just walk us through a little bit like high level on some of the kind of tokenomics around it, or like really just the role that
Yeah.
it plays in the Scale ecosystem?
Yeah, great question. One cool thing about the Scale token is it was launched in this this manner that required it be utilized in the network for 2 full months
Mm.
before the token ever was liquid. And so back October 1st, 2020, Scale went live and the token went live, and we had 4,000 people staking from 90 countries.
Wow.
And all in a fully decentralized manner. And I think there's this gray area between like, when do you go from being this like company to being a decentralized initiative? And
Yeah.
that proof of use launch is what it was called, was Scale's way of, and we worked with Consensus on
Nice.
doing this, Consensus Activate. And so Scale, is primarily utilized for one, staking in the network. And by the way, all of this code was written and built and running before the token was ever traded, which is really important for
Mm.
compliance as well. But
Right.
so you can secure the network by staking the token. You can pay for chains with the token. You can pay fees for chains. You can you can vote with the token, and that will be implemented this fall. And we're excited because the core team's not pushing that. It's all community initiatives
Yeah.
which is the way it should be. But we'd all rather have other people step up and help move that forward. And so we're excited to see some proposals come forward. And yeah, and so those are the primary mechanisms. It's uh, payment, security, and governance.
Awesome. Well, it's been so much fun, Jack, having you here on the show and getting to chat with you. So just to kind of like wrap things up, I know we've focused quite a bit on like kind of the high level vision of what you guys are doing, then also on kind of the more technical and different things like that. But in terms of what, the team at Scale Labs is currently working on, what you guys are excited about, what people might expect to kind of see coming next from Scale, what would you say is kind of what's on the docket right now?
Yeah, yeah. So one thing that's really cool is now this is the time that Scale scales.
Good.
And
All the dad jokes, right? All the memes.
yeah. So you had these monolithic layer ones that
Mhm.
really like grab market share really quick because they had it's a lot easier to launch one database. Okay.
Right.
And so you saw this happen over the last year and a half, but now the monolithic layer ones are hitting this point where if they get too much usage, then either the price goes up dramatically for transactions
Mm.
or they get slow. And now we're at this world where now we have even more and more users, we have more use cases, and we need cost effective fast blockchains. And so
Right.
the timing's really great. And already there's been 3 million transactions on Scale V2 in I think just a little over a month.
Wow.
There's already been over 26,000 users, which seems seems small, but if you look at this, other major networks only have like 100,000 users a day
Right.
that are top, top networks in the world. And there's already, over 20 chains live. And so there's already been over 25 million blocks created across the network.
Wow.
And one more stat for everybody, over $25 million in Ethereum gas fees saved at today's value. So,
Wow.
hey,
Wow.
but the next step is just, we're very mission focused as a community. And like,
Mhm.
we want to make sure developers can build applications that bring value to users. And that's really what we're focused on. We're not focused on other components. We're not worried about prices or markets. We just want to make developers successful. And then, you know, that makes a successful project.
So, if someone's watching this and they want to learn more about Scale, check you guys out, join the community, maybe either from the developer, or the kind of consumer side, and check out what's happening, where's the next best place for them to go to connect with you guys and keep learning more?
Yeah, so the first place you can go is the Scale website that has links to everything,
Hmm.
scale.space, Skale. The second place I would say is please go to Twitter, check out me at Jack O'Halloran or at Scale Network on Twitter. And then there's a very active Telegram community for people that aren't developers. And there's also a very active developer community on Discord. And so those would be the place where I would guide people. And hey, there's the Scalians is the nickname for the Scale community that is, that is very cool. The community came up with on their own, and there's a very fun and actively engaged group of people on Telegram from all over the world, and I recommend you check it out.
Awesome. Well, I will link to all of that below. So if anyone's watching this and you want to keep, continuing on, you'll be able to just click right through in the description box. So, Jack, thank you so much for coming on the show today and just taking the time to sit down and chat with me. I really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.